I think we can probably go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome everyone to our panel event today on how managed detect and response and MDR service can help mitigate the risks around ransomware. I'm Tim Mentus. I'm going to be the moderator today. I'm a co-founder of Dewpoint, been here at Dewpoint for just about 28 years and have about 35 years of experience in the IT space. Our two panelists today are Frank Fitus and Jamey Wofford. Frank is a principal sales engineer at Fortra for their MDR, XDR, and managed WAF services. He has over 20 years of experience in cybersecurity and holds multiple cyber and networking certifications as well as cloud certifications. And he has supported some of the largest Las Vegas gaming properties over the course of his career. So welcome, Frank. Thanks for being part of the panel. Jamey Wofford is a SecOps delivery manager at Dewpoint. He's an MSU graduate and has spent the past 18 years serving in the information security capacity, spanning multiple verticals, including defense, aerospace, and managed services. His background includes incident response, threat and vulnerability management, pen testing, and serves as an advisory CISO for many Michigan organizations. So thanks, Jamey, for joining us today. So I'd like to kind of set the stage at the beginning here and talk about some facts of ransomware. Over 72% businesses worldwide were a victim of some sort of ransomware attack in 2023, which is astounding. Almost 3/4 of the businesses worldwide were hit. The average time to identify a breach is in excess of 204 days. That's also known as dwell time, which we will talk about during the event in the Q&A section. But that's astounding that they can sit on your network for over 200 days without being detected, gathering information. And part of that is because 61% of mid-sized businesses don't have dedicated cybersecurity experts. So that contributes to the problem. And the average ransomware payment in 2023, Q4, was $568,000. But that's really only 10 to 15% of the overall cost of an incident. In 2023, the average total cost of a ransomware attack was in excess of $5.2 million, which is just astounding. That includes, the downtime that's suffered, the forensics that you may have to call in, providing identity theft protection to people that were affected by that. So those costs really add up during an event. And 3.5 weeks actually is the average downtime caused by a ransomware attack. So having said all that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I want to remind the participants here to put your questions in the Q&A section, and we will try to field those as we go along. But in order to protect or mitigate those risks of ransomware, I keep hearing terms like EDR, MDR, XDR being thrown out there as ways to help mitigate those risks. So, Frank, could you maybe talk a little bit about what those are? What do those acronyms mean, and maybe the differences between those?
Yeah, of course. So I know in our industry, acronym soup is a common theme. So, these are long explanations. So EDR, if you look at the kind of leading part of the acronym, EDR, XDR, MDR, the last two letters are detection and response, right? So you kind of look at it that each one of these are around detecting things and responding to things, right? So EDR actually stands for endpoint detection and response, right? So this primarily focuses on your endpoint specific threats, right? So threats that are on either end user devices, servers, and that's pretty much it, right? So it doesn't go beyond and look at your network security devices, your how your architecture is set up, things like that. It's primarily focused just on the endpoint. And XDR is kind of broadens it, right? So it stands for extended detection and response, right? So this is where we're kind of integrating multiple components to provide a broader visibility or view set to understand the threat landscape that's involved in your environment. So this could be your SaaS applications. So, think like email, O365, MFA, single sign-on. So combining the endpoint with services that are beyond it, right? So extending that beyond the endpoint, looking at where users are logging into things, where they're authenticating, things like that. And now managed detection response is even beyond that, right? So not only are you getting the detection and the ability to respond to these, but it's managed. So part of the heavy lift of looking at these elements, right? So a lot of these come in as log telemetry or even telemetry from network devices. And when I say telemetry, we're looking at things like, what was the behavior of this user? Is there something going on this endpoint? Is it doing PowerShell things? Is it doing things that are anomalous, right? So we're looking at all these logs. We're reviewing these things, right? So it is a fully managed detection response service, right? Typically, this is provided by third-party providers that are beyond just kind of a tool set that is what is typical of like EDR, right? And then there's even managed XDR, which is kind of a newer space that is really encompassing everything that I just talked about and making that a managed service that is beyond those two. So
it's fair to say XDR and EDR are more tools, and the MDR is a service that you would contract with to manage those tools and respond to events.
100%. Yep.
Right. Jamey, do you have anything to add to that?
I think that was a great explanation, Frank. I think the only thing, and just kind of to dovetail into what Frank mentioned was that that these things don't work autonomously, right? They can work in concert with each other. So oftentimes, you'll have an EDR solution deployed in conjunction with your XDR service. An XDR can coexist either, managed on site or from an MDR service, and so these things all do coexist. I think there's a big misconception out there that EDR, XDR, and MDR are separate. They're all the same thing. One was replacing another, and they work in lockstep with each other. So that's the only thing I would add.
Okay. And how do these tools complement other security tools? Organizations have firewalls and virus protection. They're doing vulnerability management. I mean, how do these tools and an MDR service complement those then?
So I'll field that one. So I think that they complement your existing security tools. I think that is actually kind of a requirement. Whether a lot of organizations already have maybe an endpoint tool. They already have, obviously firewalls, maybe load balancer appliances. Maybe they have things in the cloud. And I think the way these complement your existing tools is they tie these things together as kind of a central aggregation point for whether it's logs, whether it's integrations to your cloud platforms, looking at the logging from the cloud provider, all the way down to looking at just a holistic view of our security landscape, right? Integrating the vulnerability management tool with the firewall logging, with the endpoint logging, bringing this all in as a single kind of view and pane of glass to provide visibility, so you're not having to bounce around from, okay, and now I'm looking at my firewall logs, log out of my firewall platform or my firewall management service, bounce over into my SIEM service, and then start looking at these things, see how they correlate. I think these managed services and these tools complement by wrapping that all up into a holistic view of your entire landscape.
Okay. So we talked about dwell time in that original slide there with the ransomware facts. How do organizations limit that proximity of ransomware incident and reduce that dwell time?
Yes, I think even before you get into the managed service aspect, right? So just looking at limiting proximity of an event, right? So there's something called the kill chain or the MITRE attack framework. It's actually more now geared towards the MITRE tactic and technique framework, but mapping these things out to various vectors or stages in that kill chain is important, right? So you need to understand where these things from a proximity perspective might spread to, right? So to limit that, I think that user training is absolutely needed. Obviously, training on phishing awareness, just general security awareness is very important. Obviously, intentful network segmentation, endpoint security on your endpoint devices, management of vulnerabilities, and timely management of patching and everything else. But even beyond that, once you start to getting into these managed services that we're talking about, I think having a company that kind of wraps this all up into a service, right? So both security awareness training, vulnerability management, the integration with certain EDR vendors, looking at wherever your environment is, whether it's in the cloud or on-prem, being able to kind of pull all that in and understand where things are. This is going to enable you to limit that sort of spread, limit the time, the dwell time, because you have visibility and you have understanding. One of the most important aspects of this is to have visibility, understand how things are interconnected, and are we patching things? Are we reporting, looking at metrics? How are we understanding our posture overall, and how is it trending, right? This is all very important. And when incidents do kick off, having that visibility is hyper important, because you need to be able to prioritize those, right? Because a lot of these events are coming in almost a mountain, especially when you implement things like SIEMs and others. You're getting a ton of information. How do you prioritize that? Having the staff to help augment that and everything else, I think is crucial to limiting that dwell time, limiting that spread. And this all comes with, are you logging things? Do you have things beyond logging? Are you kind of correlating all these elements down to something that you can make sense of all this telemetry coming through?
Okay. That kind of leads to the question of, you're talking about all this telemetry and the mountains of information coming in. I mean, how can organizations address this shortage of the talent that's out there in the cybersecurity space, or, mitigate the burnout for the talent they do have on staff?
Yeah, so I think that primary challenges when you're looking at staff burnout and things like that, an augmentation of staff, right? So sometimes hiring another FTE or full-time employee, or multiple FTEs, or trying to roll your own SOC. These can be really large events, cumbersome, very costly, and there's a huge learning curve, right? So I think when you engage a managed service, you are kind of jumping to the head of the curve, right? You're kind of jumping over all the different things that you and your staff need to learn and work out, setting up the SOC, integrating things via API, to have a managed service where you have a full SOC team backing you up, with like a service level agreement based on incidents, being able to spin off like war room style exercises when an incident takes place, understanding where things are coming from in each stage of that kill chain is hyper important, and being able to aggregate all of that and respond to it with like an SLA, incorporating also security awareness training, incorporating vulnerability management, incorporating a SIEM or a managed SIEM, right? So rolling these security tools on your own is actually a very heavy lift. I think it's a kind of shortcut is to augment the staff and engage a provider that can help you with that.
And I would assume the experience of a provider, that the organization can gain a lot from having a provider with that experience and that 7x24 eyes on glass of their organization and what's happening.
100%. Yeah. So a lot of companies or organizations are not able to staff 24/7, right? These service providers, one of the core requirements is obviously 24/7, right? 24/7 response. A lot of times an SLA is crucial. So if you guys are looking at engaging a service provider like this, make sure they do have an SLA. Asking questions like how long does it take you guys to respond to something? If they can't give you a concrete answer, if that's not written into a contract, then it's kind of, you should be a little weary, right? Are they going to verify false positives? Are they going to work incidents after they respond to an incident? Are they going to fully vet out that the entire organization is safe, right? So that's why it's important to also have maybe even a vulnerability management element wrapped into your response service, because post-incident, right, we want to understand what else is also susceptible to those types of attacks, and where we can kind of shore up our defenses, ensure that we don't have misconfigurations just from like a network choke point perspective. Are we intentful in the way we were designing things? Are we looking at where our remote users are logging in? Things of that nature. So, okay.
I think you've touched on this a little bit, but maybe you can go into a little more detail. Some of the challenges that organizations face when they're trying to roll their own XDR solution. You've hit that a little bit, but I think it wouldn't hurt to expand a little bit on that.
Yeah, so definitely it is hard to retain quality talent. A lot of times when you have, you've worked and trained and you've provided financial resources to get your folks to be certified, and as they level up, a lot of times, the cybersecurity shortage that we all kind of know about, these folks get poached really quickly a lot of times. So that's why also engaging a service provider who has dedicated resources for that, it can be very, very helpful, right? And then beyond that, again, rolling your own tools, rolling your own SOC, it's a massive lift, very expensive. And I think only, that's kind of saved for some of the top, Fortune 100 style companies, where they already have a network operations center. They already have a dedicated IT team. They might have a fully dedicated security operations center where they have full incident responders. Rolling that on your own is tough, and engaging with someone that can provide that as a service really helps. So,
your service, Fortra's MDR service, where is the sweet spot for that? What types of organizations are a best fit for the service that you provide, Frank?
Yeah, I think definitely when we look at, again, the size, like IT maturity is important. Obviously, a lot of organizations have high-level IT maturity. They might have a lot of security awareness, but they just don't have the ability to staff what's needed, right? I mean, I know I've worked in roles, I know Jamey worked in roles where we've got 5 to 10 guys dedicated just to log review, right? Just to SIEM review, because just the amount of data that's coming through is hard to prioritize and respond to. And you do have to have like machine learning elements and kind of proprietary or your purchased software to kind of mine this data and help create the integrations and understand where things are connected or where they're not connected and how to respond. So I think looking at the kind of sweet spot, if you will, is folks that have a good IT maturity. They have an understanding of where their issues are, but just they don't have the ability to staff it.
Okay. And how does some of the regulatory compliance requirements impact the adoption of these security tools that you're talking about in managed solutions?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, regulatory compliance is huge. A lot of times that drives the initial search into, hey, we now have to be compliant in this various framework. We need to go out and buy this tool, right? Well, you go and buy that tool. You don't have this. You train the staff to learn how to utilize it. And now all of a sudden, we need to provide audit-ready reports, things like that. It's tough to go in and mine that data. That's why it's important to have a solution that is also it's mining this data and providing it as kind of an aggregate where you can provide audit-ready reports to various frameworks, right? So think, PCI, HIPAA, SOC 2. It's really helpful. There are some overlaps with these regulatory compliance frameworks, but it really helps to have a managed service that is already aggregating this data, already providing it, and then has audit-ready reports where you can say, hey, I need I need my PCI 10.6.6. Here's the report because I'm already using the solution that has a SIEM, has SOC as a service. It's doing file integrity monitoring. It's doing IDS. We're integrated into all of our SaaS solutions and providers. We're pulling down data from the endpoints. And it's all aggregated to provide audit-ready reports is super crucial. And it's a very tough lift. I know that I've been on teams where we just had to mine firewall logs and go through and create queries and reports specific to what the auditor wanted. And then even certain things might not be available, so we would have to take screenshots, and it's just kind of messy, and it's a big lift, right, if you have to go through an audit. So to have those reports at the ready, to have a solution that is mapping those outcomes or mapping what's going on in your environment to those outcomes at the click of a mouse is super helpful.
So a follow-up to that, I just want to understand your MDR service and tool sets provide that to the organizations. So
yes, absolutely, yeah. And I have to admit that some of the things I'm talking about, these are hard requirements for an MDR XDR provider to provide, right? An SLA, which is contractually bound, is hard to provide. Audit-ready reports, that's a tough thing to provide because you need to be not just vuln scanning and have that integrated with the solution, reviewing logs every day. I remember that was a huge lift for us, working in some of those strip properties. We would have to review all these logs every day. Obviously, we would do this programmatically, but there was always a lift in looking and reviewing, right? They'd pop up, and you'd get 500 that would pop up. Let me mine through these and see which ones are important. Oh, that looks interesting. Let's take that, do another query that's associated with that log, and provide outcomes on that, right? The daily log review element is part of what we do, right? So it is SIEM as a service, SOC as a service, FIM, SOAR. So automated responses is massively important, right? So beyond that 15-minute SLA that I talked about, where we will respond and help you work that incident, kind of like a war room style exercise where we go through and we also look at, because we're doing the vulnerability management piece and it's integrated with the tool, we're also looking at, hey, they got in from this exposure or this vector. These hosts are also susceptible to this, right? Or based on this incident, we can have the automated response piece run a scan on the environment to understand what else is susceptible to this attack, right? So having it all working together in concert, super important. And as a network security architect, as someone that worked in compliance very heavily, would have loved to have these solutions and tools. So especially as just a simple service, all wrapped up, nothing a la carte, very important.
Yeah. Jamey, maybe you can help with this question. How can organizations improve their overall security posture, their visibility and incident handling?
Yeah, let me not talk on mute. I think I did that the other day, and I was 5 minutes in, and people are like, does he know he's talking on mute? I think one thing in this, and again, to use the term dovetail, I think it dovetails into kind of what Frank was talking about and some of the solutions like the XDR solutions is that, one of the problems that we have from an incident response standpoint, and I think we've all been there, right? We have an incident response plan, right? But what we don't have is we don't have the playbook, right? So we've got this plan, which it's really hard to defer to when our hair is on fire. We're in an emergency situation. We see that, we're definitely undergoing a ransomware attack. So it's working in concert with these XDR solutions to dynamically build out your playbooks. What do I do first, right? And so by two things, by having an XDR or some other type of solution in place where we can actually refer to a single source for a lot of these type of things. What do I do first, right? What do I do to actually detect? What do I do to isolate? Things like that. Those are the things that we're able to, that we're seeing kind of come into fruition with a central or a single pane of glass, right? As opposed to, we need to check out our firewall logs for this. We need to check out our NAC for this, and maybe we need to isolate based on this. And so by incorporating an XDR with things like SOAR, we're able to automate a lot of this type of thing. And I think that it helps us not only create these playbooks, but also dynamically modify them as threats emerge and things like that. So it's very fluid. I know as somebody who is probably prematurely aged because of incident response, when I started to see things like MDR hit the the market, it greatly reduced a lot of that stress because I know what I need to do. I know what my team needs to do to respond to these things, and I'm able to do so in short order. So,
okay. And Frank, maybe you could talk a little bit about your MDR service, what that entails, kind of what sets it apart from other MDR services. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So I kind of like to preface this with, at Fortra, we go beyond, we do provide a lot of other services besides MDR. So think like digital loss prevention, digital risk protection, right? So like takedowns of domains. We have very large organizations. Don't want to name drop, but some of these are Fortune 10 companies even, I would say, if that even exists. But these are really important to, as you kind of grow and get bigger, to be able to utilize some of these resources, right? We also do like pen testing or offensive engagements. We actually, I don't know how many folks online are really kind of red teamers or, offensive engagement folks, but we've even designed Cobalt Strike, which is kind of one of the largest command and control for offensive security testing using kind of legal or approved exploits and things like that. But when you're just looking at, MDR or XDR, I think what really sets us apart is that we're looking at every stage in that kind of MITRE attack framework or kill chain, right? If you're just doing like an EDR approach or a SIEM-only approach, you're really only looking at certain areas or certain sections of the framework, right? Like from the kill chain, it looks at pre-attack or recon, right? Entry, all the way to install, privilege escalation, lateral movement, then command and control, and then all the way to actions on objectives, which for this use case is ransomware, right? To only employ certain types of tools or certain solutions which require a team to manage and gain expertise on, who, by the way, might leave you later, they're only looking at certain sections of that, right? Like EDR is looking at probably install on privilege escalation and potentially command and control. We also provide a managed web application firewall. So even from the pre-attack, recon, or inline blocking stage, we've got you covered there. It is fully managed. All the way down to every section of that kill chain or the attack framework, we are providing an SLA, right? So if we detect extensive recon, we can actually shun attackers at the edge. If even before they get on a host, right? A user account is compromised. MFA, single sign-on, O365, Azure Active Directory, on-prem Active Directory, AWS IAM. We're integrated into all of these from just what is that user doing? Is it anomalous? Looking at things like impossible travel or credential stuffing, or even down to like, hey, this user logged in 4 times or attempted to log in 4 times, but they're also logging in from a different country, and they're also using a browser that they'd never used before. That's going to get funneled down to the SOC team, and they're going to respond. Or an automated response where we will just disable that account programmatically under a couple minutes typically, so that dwell time becomes very small. And then beyond that, just integrating with a lot of other solutions, right? So we were MDR first. Now we're saying that we're expert managed XDR because we are covering your end user devices, right? We do have that 15-minute SLA. We have been focused on critical infrastructure first, right? So we didn't start as an EDR vendor working our way in. We've always been kind of a SOC as a service from the get-go, not trying to rewrite what we do as an XDR or MDR when we really were just an EDR adding bells and whistles and things like that, which is kind of where XDR came from. But so a managed XDR element is, I think, the way to go nowadays, and that's kind of where we're focused in. So, and then beyond that, just the sheer number of other solutions that tie into it. So like when I say email security, DMARC, security awareness training, even running like phishing campaigns, things like that, it's all in a single platform, right? All these elements are going to be integrated and working in concert together. So
how many years has you guys been providing this service?
So from MDR, it's over 23 years now. So even before MDR was an acronym. And then Fortra itself has been doing cybersecurity for almost 40 years now. So very, very long time. Yep.
Very mature.
Yes.
So Jamey, what trends do you see coming in the future with XDR? I think Frank hit a little bit on the offensive security testing, but just also in general, what are you seeing coming down the pipe?
Yeah, it's funny. 5 years ago, I was a panelist at an on-site event in West Michigan, and I was asked a very similar question, and I said, I think we're going to start to see, the artificial intelligence is really going to be pervasive, not only from an offensive standpoint, from a defensive standpoint. And people looked at me like I was an alien, right? That's artificial intelligence is the stuff of the future, right? But based on research, I knew that we were kind of looking at that, and I think that's exactly what we're going to see. Two things are going to be true, right? And I'll hit the offensive security testing just simply because I kind of come out of the pen test space a little bit too. But I think that we're going to see more testing as we start seeing some of our future red teaming activities. We're going to see the use of a lot more. I think there's probably going to be, and I'm sure Frank could speak to that a little bit better from like a Cobalt Strike standpoint, with the way AI is going to be integrated into products like that, even more so than what it is right now. From an XDR perspective, I think again, aside from the AI and enhanced machine learning, I think we're going to see a lot of, due to compliance requirements and just the the difficulty with things like alert fatigue and things like that. I think we're going to see a lot more organizations, partnering up, setting up strategic partnerships with organizations like Fortra to help offset that security, that local SecOps burden. I think that's going to be something that we're going to see more and more of as our responsibilities become more, and we start wearing more hats as SecOps people, where you realize we just simply can't do it all.
Okay.
So,
do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, I was just going to add on to Jamey. You touched on pretty much everything, especially the red teaming, AI-driven things. I mean, it's EDR evasion techniques. There's so many neat things to you just look up that phrase I just said. You can go down the rabbit hole. So. But I think, greater integration, greater interoperability with your existing security tools is essential. You don't want to, what's the saying? You want to throw out the baby with the bathwater kind of thing when you're replacing things, right? You want to leverage your existing tool set. I think it's very important. A shift towards, and that's already happening, from proactive and even predictive security measures. This is coming with the AI. This is coming with the behavioral anomalies, things that are anomalous. And not just anomalous, but anomalous and also correlated with other events that might be not necessarily anomalous, but cause for concern, right? And then, a continued emphasis on compliance and data and privacy and regulations, right? And then cloud adoption, cloud integrations, looking at serverless and containerized workloads, which we integrate with really well, even hosted containerized workloads. When you have multiple tenancy in things like just using compute as a service, temporarily, how do you secure that, right? Where do you inline protect that? These are really big considerations, things that we actually are doing, but even then beyond that, I think working in concert with a provider like Fortra, and then down the line as an augment, with a service provider, right, or an MSP, MSSP that goes beyond, because a lot of XDR, MDR providers, they kind of they don't have remote access into the environment. So, they can alert, they can help. They might have API access to isolate things or disable accounts. But beyond that, it's going to take a provider to be kind of that hands-on keyboard or those boots on the ground to actually help with, the sanitization of that environment, right? Or fully expelling that issue. So I think working in concert with those two elements is really going to help companies where they can't roll their own. So,
Great. Oh, guys, I'm going to flip back to our presentation here real quick. I appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. I want to ask the audience if they have any questions, if they could throw those into the Q&A section. We can get Frank and Jamey to answer any of those questions.
please.
I don't think we have any so far.
Yeah, I didn't see any yet.
So I guess we'll move on. If anyone has a question, go ahead and throw it in the Q&A section. But I'd like to thank everyone that's still with us out there. You'll be receiving an electronic Big gift card to your email, so be on the lookout for that. And then we will do our spin the wheel for the butcher box. So let me, oops, sorry. Stop sharing this screen. And let me share another screen. We'll get our wheel up and running here. Hang on. Share. Here we go. Oh. Adam Thompson, it looks.
Adam.
Congrats, Adam. So
Nice.
we'll contact you via the email that you provided to us during your registration to get an address where we can ship this butcher box to. And then also one last thing I'll share here before we leave is here we go. Contact information. So if you guys anyone has any questions, would like to learn more about Fortra's MDR service or XDR or anything about Dewpoint and the services we provide, please contact Silas Olson here. His contact information is on the screen, or you can scan the QR code there. So again, I'd like to thank everyone for coming to the event today. Hopefully you found some useful information and found it to be valuable use of your time. So I think with that, we are done.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.